in the previous session, we have discussed about the object-oriented programming principles. Now, we have discussed what exactly the object-oriented programming and what are the various principles are available which will be supporting by the object-oriented programming we have discussed. Now today we'll see the concept of classes and objects, how to prepare our own classes in Salesforce, how to write the business logic inside this we'll see practically as well. Now, that already you know that when coming to the class is nothing but a physical entity or a blueprint or a prototype which contains some set of members inside it, which contains a set of members inside it, which includes a collection of variables, a collection of properties, collection of constructors, collection of procedures, a collection of functions also. All these things we can group together into an entity that is called as a class. So class is a physical entity which contains some collection of members inside it. Then how can we define a class? How to define a class? What is the syntax we have to follow in order to define a class? Now let's see practically in this case. Now let's see the syntax. In order to define the class, we have to use these access specifiers. Now let me explain. So we can specify the access specifier. We can specify the access specifier, and then you will be having an option called as with sharing or without sharing. Okay, with space sharing or without space sharing. Class and the class name. And then here you can able to define the members. Define the members and write the business logic. And write the business logic inside this. So in this case, when coming to the class will be having a syntax. Upon defining the class inside the organization, we are going to following a specific syntax, like we can specify the access specifier, and then we can specify the with sharing or without sharing keyword. And then you have to use the keyword class, and then you can specify the class name. Okay, we can specify the class name. This is the syntax we have to follow in order to create a class inside your Salesforce instance. So, but in this case, I have mentioned something inside my square braces, like as this access specifier I'm indicating inside that square braces. And then this with sharing or without sharing I'm indicating inside the square braces, so that whatever the things I have specified inside the square braces, these are optional. You may specify, you may not specify. During that concept in the Visual Force programming, we'll see what exactly with sharing, what exactly without sharing. We'll see during that Visual Force programming concept. Okay, and then as part of this Apex programming, we'll see what exactly the access specifier, what are the various access specifiers are available in Salesforce. Now, so now here in this case here, so now in this case, whenever we are defining the class, we have to specify the access specifier. And then what exactly the access specifier? Now let's see. What are the various access specifiers are available in Apex programming? We'll see. Now, I think just now we have discussed about a concept as part of admin like as OWD. So what do you mean by OWD? OWD defines whenever a record is creating by a user. Okay, whenever the user creates a record, that record should be visible to whom? What is the level of access of the record? Who can see that record? Only the owner of the record, or the owner and his manager, or all the people inside the organization to whom the record should be visible. That will be decided by OWD. Like the similar way, whenever I'm going to be creating a class, then up to what level this class can be accessible. Up to what level this class members can be accessible, that we can define with the help of access specifier. Access specifier defines the level of access of the class and the class members. Why? Because is okay. Why? Because is we are having my Salesforce organization. Assume that I'm having my Salesforce organization. This is my organization. Inside this, I have defined a class. Okay, I'm having a class inside my organization. This is my class over. Like as some class here.
Sir,
This is my
we
class.
are hearing some background noise.
No, there is no background noise right now. And then I'm having another organization also. And then I'm indicating this another organization. This is the organization 2. Organization 2. And then I'm having one more organization is available. This is a third party organization. This is organization 3. So in this case, whenever I'm going to be creating a class, this class can be accessible up to what level? This class can be accessible within your organization or outside of your organization also. Okay, outside of your organization also. Then up to what level this can be accessible? To indicate that we are using a feature called as access specifier. Access specifier indicates up to what level the class can be accessible. The class can be accessible within the organization or outside of the organization also. That means from the third party systems also, or another organization also will you be able to access this Apex class or not. That we can decide with the help of this access specifier. Now, so in this case, access specifier indicates up to what level this class can be accessible and the class members can be accessible, that we can decide with the help of this access specifier. That facility is available over there. Now, as part of this access specifier, we are having 4 access specifiers are available in Salesforce. We have 4 access specifiers. First one is private. Second one is public. Third one, protected. Fourth one, global. These are the 4 access specifiers are available inside your organization. Inside your Salesforce instance as part of Apex programming. So now we have 4 access specifiers are available. The first one is private. Second one is public. Third one, protected. Fourth one, global. These are the 4 access specifiers has been given by Apex programming, which we can apply on your class level. Now in this case here, this a private access specifier can be applicable. Only for the variables and test classes. Okay, test classes. So now this can be applicable only for the variables and the test classes. Whenever you are defining some variables inside the class, you can define that variable as private. Or else you can define a test class with the variable. Test class with private. Now, in this case, a normal business logic class. Normal business logic class cannot be defined. Cannot be defined with private. With private. Okay, with the private. Then what do you mean by private? Private is nothing but restricted one. Restricted one. So in this case, whenever I'm defining a variable as private inside my class. So for example, assume that here this is my class A. This is my class A. I'm having one more class is also available over here. I'm having another class inside my organization, that is class B. That is class B. I'm having another organization with the name class B over here. So I'm having another organization, another class over here, that is class B. Two classes are available with me over here. Class A and the class B. Inside this class A, I'm defining a private variable. Like as for example, private integer, okay, some x. Then this variable can be accessible within the class only, within the class A only. That means it is restricted completely. Because private, this is a private to that particular class A. So whenever you are defining a variable with the access specified private, then that member can be accessible within the class. From the outside of the class, we can't access that member. That is restricted completely. It's completely closed. So now in this case, whenever I'm going to be defining the member as a private members can be accessible within the class only, not from the outside of the class. Outside of this class, we can't access this member over here. This is the problem. Okay, now in this case, let me give the note point. Private members of the class can be accessible within the class only. We can't access the members from outside of the class. We can't access the members from outside of the class. So private members can be accessible within the class only. Now, sometimes you can raise a question. Sir, suppose for example, I'm defining a member. Upon defining the members, as of now, we have defined the variables. If I'm not giving any access specified like that, then what will happen? As of now, we have defined so many variables. We haven't given any access specified over there. Now, so in this case here, if okay, if I'm not giving any access specified for a member, what is the default access specified will be giving by Salesforce over. In this case, if the user did not give any access specifier for the variable, that variable will be treating like as private by default. Okay. If the user didn't provide any access specifier by default, then Apex will treat the variable as private by default. If I'm not giving any access specifier for the variable, class variable, then Salesforce will treat that variable as private. Now, so this is the concept of the access specifier private. Now, so in this case, whenever I'm going to be using this access, defining the class, we have to specify the access specifier. At that time, the first is private. Private in the sense what? Whenever we are going to be defining the class, inside the class, if any of the member has been defined as private, then private members can be accessible within the class only, not from outside of the class. If the user did not provide any access specifier, okay, if the user did not give any access specifier for any of that class variable, then by default, Salesforce will consider that variable as private. And then, so whatever the private access specifier is available, private access specifier can be applicable only for the class variables and the test classes. We can't define the business logic class as private. Business logic class should be either global or public, any one of that. Not private, not protected. Now, second one, public. So what do you mean by public? For example, I'm defining this variable as public. Public. Whenever I'm defining that variable as public, then at that time, this is a public variable, nothing but public integer x. This x variable can be accessible within this particular class here also. Okay, you can able to access this variable within this class here also. We can able to access. We can access this variable within the class A, and then we can access this variable within the class B also, in the class C also, in the entire organization wherever you want, you can able to access it. But we can't access this member from the other organization. The thing but public means what? Within the organization only, not from outside of the organization. Whenever you are defining the member as public, public members can be accessible within the class and from outside of the class also. From where? From the another classes inside the organization. Nothing but up to the organization level we can able to access. Outside of this organization, we can't access this class variables. So whatever the class members we have defined with the public access specified, those public access members cannot be accessible. Okay, those can be accessible, okay, from within the class and from outside of the class also. These can't be accessible from the outside of the organization. That is the limitation here. Okay, now. So now in this case, public members can be accessible within the organization, from all the classes. Within the class also we can access, from outside of the class also we can access, within the entire organization wherever you want you can access it. But these members can't be accessible from outside of the organization. These members can't be accessible from outside of the organization. This is the functionality of public. Next, the third one, protected. So what do you mean by this protected now? Let's see. Basically, this protected access specifier has been introduced by Salesforce because of the inheritance concept. because of the inheritance concept they have introduced the protected access specifier. Then what do you mean by protected? Now let me explain. For example, I'm having the class A and the class B, and I'm having one more class C. Three classes are available inside my organization. This is the class C. This is the class C. Three classes are available. But this class A has been inherited into class B. Class A has been inherited into class B. That means these are associated classes. Class A is the parent, class B is the child. Because of inheritance. Inheritance means what? Acquiring the features of one class into another class. So parent class features we can access into child. So I have mapped this relation between these two classes, class A and the class B. Class A will be having some features. These members can be accessible in the class B also because these are inherited. So parent features can be applicable into child also. So now in this case, whenever we are defining the member as protected, whenever I'm defining the member as protected. So whenever I'm defining a member as protected. So these protected members can be accessible. Okay, these protected members can be accessible. These protected members can be accessible. So within this class, and then from the outside of the class also. Outside of the class means what? Where inside the child classes over here. Inside the child classes, that means what? In the class B we can access, but this cannot be accessible inside the class C because class C is independent. Now, in this case, whenever I'm defining the variable as protected, protected members can be accessible within the class and from all the derived classes. Derived classes means what? Child classes. But this cannot be accessible from the independent class within this organization. This is the functionality of protected. So basically, protected access specified has been introduced by the Salesforce because of the inheritance feature. Okay, now, but this can be applicable only at the class members, not at the class level. Okay, for the class we can't define which protected access specified. This can be applicable only for the class members. Now let me explain this. Let me give the note point. This can be applicable at the for the class members, the class variables. Now protected members can be accessible from within the class and from all the derived are child classes inside the organization. We can't access these members from other independent classes. Other independent classes inside the organization. So these cannot be accessible from the other independent classes inside the organization. This is a functionality of protected. Next one, global. So what do you mean by this global? Now let me explain over. For
Sir, what
example,
is
I'm
derived
defining
class?
a very derived class means child class. Okay, child class. Whenever I'm going to be acquiring one class into another class, that is called as the derived class or child class, or this is also called as a subclass. Just the terminology difference. We'll see how to implement the derived classes as part of inheritance feature. We'll see practicals.
Okay, thank you.
Now, so whenever I'm defining the variable as global, I have defined this variable as global so that this global variable can be accessible within the organization, from child classes also, from other independent classes also. So wherever you want within the organization, you can access. Along with, you can access it from organization 2 also, organization 3 also. That means from the outside of the organization also we can access. So global members can be accessible within the organization as well as from outside of the organizations also. That means from another organization also we can able to access it. That's what here, whenever we are implementing the web services, nothing but integrations, we are defining those members as global. So all the web services, APIs, batch classes, schedulable classes, we are going to be defining with global access specifiers. So each and every batch class, each and every schedule class, and then each and every web service, APIs are defining with global access specifier. So it is a common question in every interview, difference between public and global. Public members can be accessible within the organization only, not from outside of the organization. But global members can be accessible within the organization and from outside of the organization also. So whenever we are having the integration features, we are going to be defining those web services and the APIs and the test batch classes, schedule classes we're defining with global access specifier. Okay, we'll see batch concept and then scheduling concept. We'll see practically during our development over there. Now, let me give the note point. Global members can be accessible from within the organization and from outside of the organization also. From outside of the organization also. No. All the batch Apex classes, schedule classes, web services, in APIs should be defined with global access specifier. Global access specifier. Now I'm indicating the node. A business logic class should be always defined with either public or global. A business logic class should be always defined with either public or global. We can't use private, we can't use protected for the class. Class should be always defined with either public or global. Then where all the classes information will be getting resides. So now all the Apex classes will get resides inside the object Apex class. Apex class is a standard object in Salesforce. All the Apex classes information will be getting resides inside that Apex class object here. Each Apex class code will get resides inside the file with the extension .apxc. apxc is the extension for each and every Apex class here. If that apxc is the extension. Apex means Apex, C means class. So each and every Apex class code will be storing inside a file with the extension .apxc. So this is the functionality of access specifier inside your Salesforce instance. Then now let's see how can we create an Apex class, how can we define the members inside it. I want to define an Apex class over here, and then I want to define the members inside this. How to define the variables, you know. Okay, it's not a new thing, it's already you know that previously we have discussed so many functionalities. We have defined string variable, integer variable, double variable, decimal variable, everything we have defined over there. So now let's see how can we define a class with some respective members. Now let's see practically. Okay, now. So now whenever we are going to be defining the class, here how many ways are available? Ways to define an Apex class. Whenever we are defining the Apex class, we have multiple ways are available. First one, by using standard navigation. Second one, by using developer console. Second one, by using developer console. Third one, by using URL format. By using URL format. These are the three ways are available in order to define an Apex class. By using standard navigation also we can define. By using developer console also we can define. By using URL format also we can define an Apex class. Then how to define an Apex class by using developer console? Now let's see, because developer console is the most powerful and then very easiest method to define an Apex class. Then how can we create an Apex class by using developer console? We'll see. Let me give you the navigation. So now in this case, open the developer console editor. You know how to open the developer console editor. Then click on file menu, go to the new menu item, click on Apex class. Enter the Apex class name. Enter the Apex class name inside the text box. Inside the text box provided by the editor or the dialog box. Inside the dialog box, you will be having a small text box. So in the text box, enter that Apex class name. And then click on OK button. Click on OK button. It is preparing a class syntax. Write the business logic inside the edit class by using editor, and then click on Control S to save the class code. Okay, to save the class code, we are going to be using a shortcut mechanism called as Control S. Control S is the shortcut mechanism in order to save your class code over there.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Now let's see in this case, how can we define the class by using this developer console. So go to the developer console editor and specify the details. That means give the Apex class name and then save it. It is providing the class code syntax, and then write the business logic and define the members inside this class, and then Use that Control S in order to save that class code. Now, let's see the practical part over here. How can we do that? Take a small use case. Now, define an Apex class to manage the employee details. Define an Apex class to manage the employee details. So generally for an employee, what kind of details will be available? Like employee code, employee name, and the designation, salary, age, date of birth, joining date, and then his address, email ID, phone number, like that. These are the various members we can define inside this employee class. Because related to the employee, these are the various properties that we can define. So now let's see how can we define an Apex class. Now let's see. Let me show you that here. I'm preparing this class. Let's go to the developer console. Go to that, your name on the top right corner, expand it, click on developer console. The developer console editor will be getting opened for you. Go to the developer console editor. Now, once the developer console editor has been getting opened, then simply go to that file menu, click on new menu item, and you will be having an option called as Apex class. Click on this Apex class link, then it is providing a small dialog box. So inside this dialog box, you have to specify the Apex class name, with which name you want to create the Apex class. Whenever you are creating the Apex class, then please give a proper meaningful name for the class. And the two, you can't create two classes with the same name. We can't create two Apex classes with the same name because Apex class name should be always unique. We can't create two classes with the same. Now, so now I'm giving the class name like as employee details. I'm giving the class name like as employee details. So now a class has been prepared. It is indicating like as public. Public class name. Class syntax has been given by Salesforce over here. You know that how to define the class. Access specified and the word class and then employee detail. This is the class name. Whatever the name that have given for the class, with that name the class has been prepared by Salesforce. Now here we have to define the members over here. What are the members that you want? We can define these members inside this class. Now I want to store the employee details like as employee code. So I'm defining the member. Public integer emp code. And along with that, I'm indicating age. Age is also numerical. Employee code is also numerical. So I'm indicating this. Public string employee name. I'm defining the variables. Employee name and then address, email ID, and then designation, and then contact number. That means phone number. These are the members which I have defined. And then I'm indicating public date. So he's a birth date over here. Birth date and the joining date of this employee. Inside the company, what is his joining date? And the relieving date. Okay, relieving date. These are the three variables we have defined as part of as type of date. And then his salary. Salary means what? Money. Money in the sense currency, that is decimal. So the decimal salary amount. Okay, salary amount. And then I'm defining this number. Public Boolean is active. That means whether this employee is still working inside our company. To indicate that we are using this is active variable. So these are the various variables we are using as part of this class. So in order to manage this employee details, we are using all these class members. So we can use these members in order to define, in order to manage this employee details. So that here we have defined the different types of field, such as employee code, employee name, age, date of birth, and then I have stored that address, email ID, contact number, all these variables I have defined inside my class. So that by using these variables, we can able to manage our employee details. Now, like the similar way, we are going to be defining the classes. This is the way we have to define the class inside our Apex programming language. By giving a proper name, once the code has been written, then we have to save this class code. Then how do we know whether the class has been saved or not? This is the class name given by self. This is my file name. What is this file name? So now employee details. Whatever the class name that you are given with this name, it is creating a file. What is the extension of the file? .apexc, nothing but Apex class. And here beside that, you will be having a small star symbol is there. Star symbol means what? This code is not yet compiled. This code is not yet compiled over here. Then how can we compile this code? How can we save this code? So we don't have any save button on this editor to save this class code. So if you want to save this class code, we have to use Control S. Okay, we have to use this Control S in order to save this class code. Now it is indicating saving this class code. Now the class has been saved successfully over here. So now here in this case, there is no star symbol right now. The class has been successfully saved. This is how we are going to be writing this class code. Now, here let me explain one more small benefit over here. Suppose, for example, upon writing this code, I did some mistakes. So now here I did not specify the semicolon here. For the relieving date, I'm removing the semicolon. I haven't written this semicolon over here. Let's see what will happen. I'm not changing anything. I'm not saving anything. I'm not touching anything inside this. Immediately, you will be able to see a small exclamation symbol over here. It is indicating there is a problem in the line number 6. What is the problem in the line number 6? The problem is line number 5 is not ended properly. Semicolon is not available, but you have started with public over here, so that you should not able to do that. So that's what it is indicating, exclamation symbol. That means what? So now this developer console is having a auto compile option by default. That means upon writing that code, for each and every 10 fraction of seconds, your code will be sending to the post.com platform for the compilation. We no need to compile that code manually. There is an auto compile option is available for the classes over here inside this developer console. So upon writing that code, for every 10 fraction of seconds, your code will be sending to the post.com platform for the compilation. Once the code has been compiled successfully, then it is going to be saving that class code inside that Apex class object, and then it will store inside the metadata repository also. Okay, now then how can we solve this problem here? It is indicating that. So here it is indicating like as problems 1. Once just expand this tab bar, you will be having the problems tab. Go to the problems tab. Here we can see missing semicolon at public. That means here this statement is not ended properly, so there is a semicolon is missing over here. Not just to specify the semicolon. Just I'm not saving anything. Just to specify the semicolon. That's it. Automatically the code will send to the post.com platform for every 10 fraction of seconds. It will compile the code. It will be solving the problem. See, the problem has been solved. This is one of the major benefits that we have inside this developer console. So developer console provides an auto compile option. It won't save the code, but it will be compiling the code automatically. For every 10 fraction of seconds, code will be keep on compiling automatically. You can keep on write the code, and then it will keep on compiling the code automatically by default. That facility is available as part of this developer console. That's what here in the real time, in 99.99% of the people are using developer console upon writing your Apex program. Okay, this is how we need to write the code inside your developer console by defining a Apex class. This is the way we have to define the Apex class. Now this access specifier for the class should be either public or protected, and then you can use the keyword of class and then give the class name and then define the members whatever you want inside the class with the respective data types. Okay, so let me place this code. So let me take one more small use case. Define an Apex class to manage the product details.
Could we break the silence?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sir,
So in this case, yeah, tell me.
sir, even while assigning variables, we need to give access specifier.
No, upon defining the variable only, we can give that specifier. Upon assigning, you can do it directly. We can assign. Like as EMP code equals to some value, age equals to some value. While defining the variables only, we have to give the data type and access specifier. The remaining places we don't need to use that.
That's what, like while defining variable.
That's what here. While defining the variable only, we can give the access specifier. At the time of assigning the values, we don't need to give any access specifier, data type, nothing. Only give the variable name, assign, you can able to assign the value whatever you want.
No, sir.
Now,
He's asking, is it mandatory to give the access specifier when we define a variable, or is it
yes,
optional?
yes, we have, yeah, no, it's basically it's an optional. If you did
Yeah,
not specify
okay.
any access specifier, by default, Salesforce will consider like as private.
Okay.
Okay, but private members, private members can be accessible within the class only, not from outside. If you want to make it accessible from another class or outside of the class, we have to make it as public. So as a best practice, please give the access specifier for that class members. Okay,
Okay, sir.
as of now, whatever the programs we have discussed, as of now, we haven't given any access specifier, but within the class, from the class concept, we have to define the variables aligned with access specifier mandatory. It's a best practice. Okay. Now I want to define an Apex class in order to manage the product details. So I want to store some products information. Now generally what kind of details we can store inside the product related to the product, like as product code, product name, and then manufacturing person. That means who is that manufacturer, and the location of the manufacturer, and the unit price of the product, and then product manufacturing date, and the relieving date, so the expiry date, and then it will be having whether the product is available in stock or not. Like that, we are going to be defining some details of the product. Let me define a class. How to do that? Go to the file menu, click on new and Apex class, and give the class name as, I'm indicating the class name as product details. Okay, I'm giving the class name as product details. Now, I'm going to be defining this class, okay, with the respective members over here. Like as public integer product code, integer product code, and then we are having the quantity. So how many number of products are available over here? I would like to indicate the quantity. And the public string product name. What is the name of the product? Manufacturer. And the contact number of the manufacturer. So that I'm indicating like so. And then I would say the product manufacturing date. Manufacturing date and the expiry date, the manufacturing date and expiry date. So this two will be of type date data type. And the next one, I'm defining that. What is a unit price? Means what money? So that I'm indicating with the decimal unit price. What is the price of this? And then the product is available in stock or not. So that I'm defining Boolean is in stock. Is in stock. So I would like to indicate that whether the product is available in stock or not. Now, so these are the various members which I have defined inside this class. In order to relate to the product, okay, related to the product, so I would like to store all these details, like as the product code, quantity, and the product name, manufacturer name, and the contact number, manufacturing date, expiry date, unit price, is in stock, okay, like that.
Contact number string.
Sorry?
Contact number, is it string?
Yes, because we are going to be adding the contact number like this. For example, if I'm storing the contact number like as plus some 91, and after that, if I'm giving the numbers like as 787 989 8899. So in this case, what will happen? It is a type string, right? It is having the plus symbol. So it is a character, space character, base is character, hyphen character. So that it is a combination of alphanumerical values. So it is a string. So that I'm indicating the contact number as string data type.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now. So now in this case, here I'm saving this class code. How can we save? Use that after writing the code. Click on Control S. This is the forgot. This is a mistake the people will do generally. After writing this class code, just click on this Control S. Or else, let's see. If you want to know whether the class has been saved or not, here please verify here. There is a star symbol is available or not. Star symbol is available means class is not saved. Class is compiled, but the class is not saved. So save that class code by using Control S. Click on Control S, it will be saving the class code. So no start symbol over here. So the class has been saved successfully. This is how we are going to be defining the classes inside your Apex program. Okay. Now, let me place this code. Now, let me give some assignments. Simple concept. If you know how to define the class, how to access the variables by using object, then further concepts are very, very simple. Now, so now getting this case. The first, define an Apex class to manage the client details. For example, we have a client. Related to the client, what kind of details are available? Client code, client name, and the location of that client. How many projects we have delivered to the client? And then what is the start date and the end date? How much revenue we have generated from the client? Everything we can able to manage. Define an Apex class to the members inside this. Define an Apex class to manage the customer details. You know, for the customer, what kind of details are required? Analyze those numbers and then define the class. Next one. Define an Apex class to manage the project details. For every project, you will be having some specific details are available, like as project code, project name, client name, budget cost, start date of the project, end date of the project, team size also, how many members are there inside this project, project status, whether it has been started or not. We can define. Next one. Define an Apex class to manage the student details. To manage the student. So related to a student, what are the various details are required? You can identify that, define those members, and with that class. So prepare these 4 classes today. Tomorrow we'll see how to create the object for the class, how to access these members, how to assign the values, how to retrieve the values. We'll see practically. If you know this class concept and object concept, the next concept is ORM, object relationship and the mapping. So that concept will be very, very easy for you, nothing difficult. So that here, if you're perfecting classes and the objects concept, then further concepts will be very, very easy. That too, next concept will be purely ORM, object relationship and the mapping. So that concept will be very easy. So through that ORM, we'll see how to create the records inside your object through program. Through a class, how can we create the records? We'll see how to create independent records, how to create related records also, how to create bulk records also. We see practically over there through program. Okay. So do the practice on this one today. Tomorrow we'll see the object concept, how to create the object of a class, how to access this class members, how to assign the values for the class. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.